with documents. We can resize the image. We can also resize the canvas. And those are two very important, distinct things. Let's take a closer look at those.
In working with documents, there are three things I want to look at under the image menu, and that is image size, canvas size, and crop. I have a photo that I took of these prairie dogs. It is 1280 by 853 pixels. I want to change the size and shrink it down. So I'm going to go to image, image size, and we get a dialog box. I'm working in pixels, but if you prefer to work in inches or centimeters, those are options. So 1280 by 853 pixels. Now notice to the width and the height, there's a little link here between these two, and you can turn that on and off. In most cases, you want to have that on because it's going to allow us to resize proportionally. So as I change the width, it will automatically change the height and vice versa. If you don't do that, we run the risk of stretching our image and distorting it. I can also change the resolution, and for on-screen documents, this is usually going to be 72 pixels per inch. There's also a drop down here as far as how to resample. I'm going to leave it as automatic. That's going to mean as it changes the dimensions, how does it get rid of or add pixels? Now, one thing I'm going to caution you here, when you resize an image, you generally always want to try to resize it to be smaller. And the reason is if we try to expand this and make it larger, what we're doing is we're taking those pixels and stretching them apart and then trying to fill in the gaps. And Photoshop does a pretty good job of that, but the result is a more blurry image. So working with images, we always want to start with something bigger and try to go smaller if it needs to be resized. The best practice, of course, is to have images that are the exact size we want to use. Let's say we want to make this 800 pixels wide. As I do 800, it's going to change the height to 533. And I'm going to click OK. And we'll see our image now has shrunk down. So now that I've made this image smaller, let's take it back again and make it larger. Now normally if I wanted to do that, I made a mistake here and I wanted to make it larger, I would just go to Edit and choose Undo Image. Let's pretend we started with this size, and now I want to go to Image, Image Size, and let's set it back to 1280 by 853. Now it didn't do a bad job, but actually if we could compare this to the original, we would see that edges and things are just a little more blurry. So it depends on the purpose that you want to use this image for. If it's going to be something printed at a high resolution, resizing up probably is not a good move. I'm going to go to the history panel over here. I'm going to go back to the original. So I'm going to go back to my original size. If you look close to the document, you might see a slight change in terms of the quality. I'm going to go back to that original larger size. And you might have just noticed it's a little bit clearer. If you look at these hairs in here, there is the smaller view that was enlarged, and there is the original. I'm going to go back to that smaller size, 800 pixels wide. And let's look at the image canvas size change. Brings up another dialog. Now here we have our width and height, and these are not necessarily relative. There's an anchor with 9 sections, and you'll see the dot in the center means it's anchored in the center. If I were to make this smaller, let's go 640 by 480, it's going to get rid of some of the excessive areas around it and shrink it down to 640 by 480. Actually, in essence, it's cropping in this case. And we're going to get a warning that we're going to lose some information. I'm going to say proceed. And you'll notice we got rid of this stuff around the edge. Let me undo that. So you can see how it removed information. Now at the same time, I could take this and say, go back to image canvas size, and this time I'm going to make it larger. Let's go back to that 800 by 553, I think it was. And I have a choice here. Now it's going to make this larger. It's going to give us some canvas area on the outside. It won't stretch this out. It's just going to add to the canvas. And I have some choices as far as canvas. So I want to use the foreground, the background, white, black, gray. I'm going to choose the foreground, which is going to be my black color over here on the tool panel. Say OK. And notice that it added black pixels all the way around my image, so it's now a larger size. The image itself hasn't changed size, the canvas has changed size. I'm going to go back again to my original here. This time I'm going to go to Image, Canvas Size. We're going to shrink this down to 640 by 480. And I'm going to change the anchor. I want the anchor to be at the left. So I'm going to keep this left edge, and I'm going to go to 640 to the right, and the 480 will be centered. Let's see what happens. Proceed. And there we go. Again, I'm going to go back in time and toggle between those two views. And in the same vein, if I do canvas size and I go back to 800 by 553, and I'm going to anchor on the left-hand side, let's watch what happens here. I'm not adding any canvas on the left, but I am adding a large portion on the right. Now, why would I do this? It might be that I want to add some text here, or maybe a caption at the bottom. So that's some reason why we might add canvas size. We can also add canvas size when we want to do a montage. We want to add another photo to this. So maybe I have two photos and I want to put them side by side. I can take the first one and extend its width out, maybe double the amount, and then add in another image to the right-hand side of that. One last time, I'm going to go back to my image. Again, edit, image, canvas size. This time, I'm going to anchor it at the top right. And I'm going to go a width of 600 and a height of 400. Click OK. Proceed. And so I kept the upper right-hand corner and then cut everything around it as needed. Once in a while, you might want to do this in stages. So maybe I want to trim a little bit of this off and then make it smaller all the way around. So I can do two stages here. Image, canvas size. I'm going to trim 100 pixels off the width, but I want to anchor it on the left. So I got rid of this area over here, and now I want to trim it all the way around a little bit. So image, canvas size, and maybe I want to do 50 pixels all the way around. So I'll change this to 600 and 433. I'm going to center it, OK, and proceed. And so it trimmed off 50 pixels on all the margins. I'm going to go back to my original size. Let's talk about another way to crop an image. So I'm going to go to my rectangular marquee tool. The rectangular marquee allows us to select an area, and then we can go to the image menu and choose crop. And we'll get rid of everything outside of that rectangular marquee. Easy way to crop. And again, I'm going to undo that. And I can make pretty much any dimensions I want. Image, crop. Again, I'll undo that. Now let's say I want this to be 800 by 600. We'll look at the rectangular marquee tool in a little more depth in a future video, but there is a style here. It says normal, I'm going to do fixed size. And I can say I want this to be 800 by 600. And now I can just click on my image with the rectangular marquee tool, and I get an 800 by 600 sized selection. I can use the arrow keys and nudge it. If I hold down the shift key, I can nudge it 10 pixels at a time. So I can decide how I want this image to be framed at that particular size, and then say image crop. So that's the difference between resizing image, resizing a canvas, and cropping. Sometimes we'll use these in combination. I might resize an image down using image size, and then I might want to trim a little bit off using canvas size or using crop. So we can sometimes use these together in combination to get exactly what we want. So that's resizing images, resizing canvases, and a basic lesson on cropping. If you'd like to see more videos in the Photoshop Practicum playlist, click the title at the bottom. If you'd like to be alerted to new videos, please click my photo in the top right to subscribe to the channel.